So my grandfather was an educator. He was a teacher, principal, but he was also an entrepreneur. He invested in real estate, he ran our family farm, and he had several small businesses. But his passion was to help kids achieve greater success through higher education. As you see, I grew up in the North Georgia mountains in a very rural area, and for most people, they didn't have a whole lot of choice in what they did when they grew up. You were going to grow up and work on the farm or in the chicken farm or in the chicken plant. And the only way out really was through education, but many believed that they didn't have the opportunity to do this, but he did believe that. And I remember sitting on our front porch. We have this huge front porch like you would imagine in a southern house, shelling peas because we again the farm, and he told me, he said, people don't have a choice in their circumstance. They don't have a choice in how what gifts they're given, what strengths they're given, but they do have a choice in how they respond to that circumstance, and they do have a choice in how they employ those gifts. And some people choose to employ their gifts of strength or intelligence or power or wealth to benefit themselves, to do things for themselves. But others make the choice to employ those gifts to benefit others, to help raise up other people. And that has a multi-generational impact. And I didn't really know what he meant at the time because I was like 9. But now that I'm much older than 9, I almost understand what that means. So I want to talk to you a little bit today about a couple of people that I know. And this is Sawani. Sawani is a rice farmer in northern Thailand. She farms about 2 hectares, which for you Americans, that's 5 acres or so. Her family, she brings home for her family around $1,200 or $1,300 a year farming that rice. Lately, she's been impacted by longer hot days, hotter temperatures, less predictable rainfall. The price and volatility in rice is going crazy, but even when it goes up, she still only sees 5 or 6% because most of the money goes to the brokers and the middlemen and the intermediaries. It doesn't go to the creator, right? She's heard about carbon credits because it's everywhere and she has a smartphone, but she knows that she has no way to access that. Even though she could make changes that could have a positive effect on our planet, she can't access those because the system is set up to exclude people like Sawani. And this is Guy. Guy's the manager of a small boutique hotel. It's a luxury hotel in a ski resort town here in the US. He's been getting a lot of pressure lately from both customers as well as the industry itself to do something about sustainability. And there are all these terms like net zero and carbon neutral, and he has no idea where to start because the exchanges that exist now are difficult to use, or they're either made for really big companies or they're made for like very expensive subscription services. And so he doesn't know where to start. But what he does know is he doesn't want to be accused of greenwashing because that's almost worse than doing nothing at all. And so Guy has nowhere to begin because the system is not built for people like Guy. You see, the system is broken for people like Sawani and Guy. It's built for large companies. It's built for hedge funds. It's built for the institutional investors who want to go in and they say, we're going to protect these million acres of rainforest because otherwise we're going to go cut it down and we want to get paid for it. And I have nothing against saving trees. But the problem is that the system right now as it stands is too expensive, it's too time consuming, and it's too confusing for anyone to participate. It doesn't incentivize action. In fact, it disincentivizes it. And really, it rewards those intermediaries, those brokers in the middle. Fortunately, Sawani is part of a group that was put in touch with us, Spiro Carbon, through the Ministry of Agriculture in Thailand. And with a few simple ways that she changed her farming, she was able to reduce her methane emissions by 50%. And we use an automated monitoring, reporting, and verification methodology. We use satellites and all sorts of data to be able to verify that she was doing the activities she needed. So we removed that friction barrier, and we were able to create carbon offsets that we sold on the market and sent 80% of that money back to Sawani. And what that means for her is about a 15 to 20% increase in annual income that's on this digital crop. It's no longer tied to the rice market and the volatility. It's tied to the global carbon offset market, but it creates a dual stream of income from work that she was already doing. For Guy, he was able to access the same thing to kick off a sustainability strategy without having to really figure out all of the details and the intricacies of it. And best of all, because all of this is put on blockchain, it's completely traceable, it's 100% transparent, he has a very strong defense against this idea of greenwashing because he can trace back to the exact spot on Earth that unique carbon offset, that ton of carbon, was created. So the technology behind this, we have automated the monitoring, reporting, and verification. We use multi-streams of data to do that from trusted sources that are publicly available. We take all of that data and we write it on chain. We produce an NFT, so one NFT equals a unique ton of carbon or carbon equivalent saved. So it's not this mass piece. You can trace each piece back, and then we make that publicly auditable. So we do away with the need for third-party certification because everyone can be a third-party certifier. We're democratizing the benefits of the carbon offset for those people that the current system excludes. We're a little bit different in the way that we do the methodology. Actually, we're a lot different. We're the only ones right now who are looking at doing away with the need for third-party certifiers. We're using global standards to do it, but we're able to automate that process and make it much faster, much cheaper, and much more transparent. The other piece is the market we're going after. No one is focusing on the smallholder farmer piece because everyone wants to go out and they want to do huge tracts of land and they want to keep most of the money, whereas we want to work with smallholder farmers and we want to give them back most of the money because at the end of the day, the system doesn't need to be set up for you and me. The system needs to be set up for the people who are the creators, just like our artists need to benefit from the work that they're doing with NFTs. These farmers, when they make changes to help the earth, they should be the ones that are benefiting from that. And why that is a big deal is because the opportunity itself is huge. There are 500 million Sawanis out there. They're the ones that are being most impacted by climate change, and they're also the ones that have the least ability or capacity to fight back. And supporting them are Guy and his colleagues who by 2030 will be spending $50 billion a year on just voluntary offsets. So that's not even talking about the compulsory markets and renewable energy credits and everything else. $50 billion a year on voluntary offsets. So why do we not connect the two? Why should we not do that? Because at the end of the day, not every carbon offset is created the same. And we believe very strongly that if we're looking at sustainability, sustainability means more than just environmental impact. It means social impact. It means economic impact. And when we talk about impact, we're really talking about equity, equality, right? So there are these 17 SDGs, and we look at our projects, and most of ours hit a lot of these different SDGs. But we think that in the long term, both for the consumer and for society as a whole, it's important that we look at sustainability in a holistic manner. So when my grandfather died, he was 96. And normally when you're that old, when you die, you don't have a lot of friends left. And so funerals tend to be very small. It tends to be, a few friends and family. But at his funeral, we had several hundred people show up. And standing in the receiving line, you would talk to each one, and the stories were all the same as they came through. It was, I was kind of a troubled kid when I was in high school, but your grandfather sat me down and told me that I could do better. And he put me in his car and he drove me to the admissions office at Georgia College. Or he sat down with me because I was worried about how I was going to pay for this. And he called scholarships. He called the admissions office. He did this. And now that led me to go to medical school. And now I have this thriving practice and my kids are able to go to college. It's a foregone conclusion. And so we heard this over and over, that there's this multi-generational impact. And that's when it really started to kick in. And so the question that I have for you is, what's your legacy going to be? Because that's his legacy. And that was his legacy for this tiny little town in North Georgia, up in the foothills of the Appalachians. But you have intelligence, you have strength, you have power, and you have wealth. So how are you going to use that? What impact are you going to have? What legacy are you going to leave? Can you bring needed technical skills to this fight? Because believe me, this is a fight. We're talking about displacing a system that people make billions of dollars off of. Will you sponsor farm transition projects? Or will you invest in companies like us and others who are trying to displace this system? Or will you just be an advocate for greater transparency within the system? So, what choice are you going to make?